I'll go ahead and get us started then. Thank you everyone so much for coming today. My name is Haley. I'm in the Auggie events team, and Auggie is the number one platform for parents to find community, share recommendations, and learn from experts like Ilana. We're so happy for today's event. Thank you for joining again. This is the event for You're Not Failing, You're Feeling Motherhood's Quiet Grief. So I'll go ahead and pass it on to Ilana to get us started. Thank you guys so much for coming. And then also feel welcome to add any questions or comments in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that and have an opportunity at the end to answer some questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Haley. Thank you so much, Augie. And thank you, mamas, for being here today. I know it's hard to find time in your day to just find time, period, to do anything. So I'm really excited to be here with all of you. I would love to make this as interactive as possible. So if you use emojis, use reactions, you can put comments, Q&A in at any time. We will do Q&A at the end because I do get very distracted. And so I want to make sure that we can stay on track here. So, without further ado, and if you are willing to turn your camera on, would love to see your faces, or just, use reactions so I know how things are landing. It helps me better make sure I can tailor the content to all of you. So, why are we here today? Is because I'm on a mission to make sure that all moms know that their feelings are valid, all of them. And it's so important for moms to be able to feel everything without shame and to feel all of it because the emotional truth of motherhood is that it is messy, it is complicated, and it is beautiful. So if you've ever felt any resentment, grief, or ache about your old life, and even those moments that maybe you hate being a mom, doesn't make you a bad mom at all. They make you human. And the fact that you care, it's proof, the fact that you care, it's proof that you are a good mom. So today we're going to talk about what you're feeling is normal and about all the different emotions that come up in motherhood. So if no one's ever told you this before, I want to say clearly that if you've ever felt that you don't know who you are anymore, or felt like you wanted to run away, even just for 5 minutes, or maybe go to the bathroom by yourself for 2 minutes, you're not alone and you're not doing it wrong. You're just feeling something that doesn't get named enough and doesn't get talked about enough. And today we're going to change that. So before we dive in, I just want to briefly introduce myself. I'm Alana Shapiro-Yadav, founder of the Nonlinear Journey. I'm a matrescence coach and a certified grief specialist. I have two little girls, a feisty 5-year-old and sassy teenager, and a little diva for a princess. And I came to this work, first grief work found me after my father died, the day after I turned 24, and all the years of emotional unraveling. And then again, with the transformation of becoming a mom, almost 15 years after my father died. And both of those experiences profoundly shaped me and profoundly shaped the trajectory of my life. And I come at this both with the education, but also with that personal experience of knowing what that feels like, to love your child with everything that you have, and also just wanting 2 minutes to rest and to still feel that lost, unseen, overwhelmed, and quietly grieving version of yourself that you left behind. And so today, I'm excited to share some of the most profound tools and concepts that I learned that really changed my life. To start, the first time that I ever felt this grief, and then I wasn't even able to really call it grief, was the day my first daughter was born. She came a month early, came into the world kicking and screaming, and then decided breathing was overrated, even though she was quite impatient. It was a traumatic experience for both of us, and she was rushed to the NICU. And I remember sitting in the hospital room while they put me back together and while she was whisked away to the NICU, and sitting there thinking how I'd already failed my baby. I wasn't even a mom for an hour, and I'd already failed her. I couldn't keep her in my body. I couldn't even be with her in the NICU. I didn't know the first thing about breastfeeding or any of those things. And I just thought, gosh, I've let her down already. And it was just a really hard way to start, my motherhood journey. And I remember my husband was sitting there, I think I had a death grip on his hand while they were putting me back together. And I just was just thinking, and I remember later that day that he was able to just go to sleep. And I just thought, why can he go to sleep? And I realized just how much of it wasn't just exhaustion, it was grief. It was grief for that birth I didn't get. It was grief for the early birth of my baby and grief for the woman that I was even an hour ago who had that naive perception of what it was going to be like to just for my baby to come into the world and I would hold her and she would know how to nurse and I would know how to nurse. And that's when I started to realize that something deeper was happening. Something I hadn't heard anyone talk about, nothing in any of the parenting mama classes that I had been to. And at this time, frankly, I didn't quite have the language for it yet, but it started something then. Let's talk about what motherhood is. It is the both and of loss and love. Both and. It's not just we're going to be happy all the time. We're not going to be sad all the time. Motherhood isn't just a beginning. There's thousands and thousands of tiny endings and thousands of tiny beginnings. It's not just about gaining something and someone new. We're also losing someone, losing our past self. And there's so many quiet and visible losses that no one names. You lose your time, your identity, your body autonomy, spontaneity, and also maybe even your sense of safety. And it's not said enough that both can be true. You can feel that profound loss and that profound joy. They go hand in hand. It's not either or. You can feel that overwhelming love and that overwhelming resentment and the gratitude and the just overwhelming gratitude and also that grief. And it's not a contradiction. It's all part of being a mother, of being a mother. Society has this message that you become a mom and you can look on Pinterest, which yes, maybe some of our lives might look a little bit Pinterest. Spoiler, mine does not look like anything Pinterest worthy. Um, and we can sometimes start to compare to a stock image. We can compare to a fantasy. And the truth is that there's so much to it. There's so much nuance. And so to be able to start naming it and having that awareness can start to feel more at peace. And that's my hope for you. When you start to feel whatever emotions that you have, here I list a few. And if all the emotions that I list today are not relevant for you, insert the emotion that you feel, you know, and whatever comes up for you, and know that those are valid and they're not contradicting because it's all part of that beautiful and hard motherhood journey that we are all on in our own way, in our own time. Motherhood is both and. You can hold more than one emotion. And I want to repeat that again and again that even in the joy and exhaustion in the middle of the night, if there's feeds or a sleep regression, or your teenager is mouthing off to you, or your 3-year-old is rolling their eyes at you, and part annoyed and part like, yeah, you get that feisty attitude. It all exists and is all real and it's all normal and valid because grief isn't negative. It's a response to change. And gosh knows if anything is a constant change, that's motherhood. So let's talk about what this actually is. Now, I would love if everyone could put in the chat when you hear the word grief, what's the first thing that comes to you? If you're comfortable putting it in the chat, I would love that. Um, or um, if you wanted to call out. But typically, when people hear the word grief, they think of death and divorce. And that's those very, very valid versions of grief. Loss, yeah. Grief is also much more than that. Grief is what shows up. I think my slides can work. Okay. Grief is what shows up when something meaningful is lost or gained. And in motherhood, we lose and we gain so much. And think about all the things that you've gained in motherhood and also all the things that we've lost in motherhood. Different things from time, freedom, autonomy, identity, parts of our relationship, parts of ourselves. And something in us, it shifts Something in us vanishes entirely and changes. And that's all part of a grieving experience. And what most people don't realize is that it's grief. Not wrong. It's not selfish. It's not anything to be ashamed of. Again, it's actually evidence that you're changing and that this experience matters to you. It's actually very, very beautiful. And when we can name it, and then we can also, it can loosen that hold on us and that we can allow it to be there. Because when you think about it, like think about sand. If you're holding sand in your hand, if you try to grip it tightly, it starts to fall out. But if you hold it, you know, loosely, it'll stay there and you can kind of get rid of like any parts of the sand that you want and hold on to it. So we can start to say, hey, I'm grieving right now. This is grief and this is okay. It's a very, very powerful tool to work through our emotions. Now, I want to take a few minutes to talk about what grief is from a higher level. And we're sticking to grief today, typically in the context of how it shows up in motherhood. And of course, this also applies to grieving a death or loss or divorce or many other things that we can grieve. But today, our focus is really also on motherhood. And of course, we grieve losses in motherhood as well. So, grief is the normal and natural reaction to the loss of any kind. It's the normal and natural reaction to the loss of any kind. Grief is also the conflicting feeling when something familiar ends or changes. The conflicting feelings around when a familiar pattern ends or changes. Think about all of the patterns and changes that we have in motherhood. We would need hours upon hours, probably even years, to even discuss those here, to scratch the surface. And grief is also cumulatively negative. It is cumulative and it can accumulate negatively. Now, when you look at grief in that context of being normal and natural and happening around any change, any transformation, I want you to think about that in the context of your motherhood journey and the different feelings that you have throughout your motherhood journey. And you can know that a lot of it is grief. And one thing to know is that all grief is valid. It is all experienced at 100%. We don't compare or minimize. The fact is, everybody gets a gold medal for suffering in grief. And someone's joy, somebody's pain doesn't take away from anyone else. We all experience our own feelings. Again, our pain doesn't take away from someone else's pain. And to think, another mother has it worse. Intellectually and situationally, maybe that's correct, but it doesn't take away that from your grief or whatever pain or whatever joy that you're feeling is. And it's never too late or too early to process a grief. And I know this is a cliche saying, but it's so true, is you can't pour from an empty cup. Or the bits that you are pouring from an empty cup is not really the stuff that I think we all want to be giving our loved ones. So again, you can think about grief that is the normal and natural reaction to the loss of any kind. And it's the change and end in any familiar pattern of behavior. Now, let's also talk about what our motherhood journey is. And it has a word for it, and it's called matrescence. I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, "Ma, what?" I was like, I don't even know how to pronounce it. It took me forever, but it's such a gift to moms. And it's my mission to also make sure every mother knows about it. I wish that when we found out we were pregnant or were thinking about becoming pregnant, we all were taught that we are going to go through matrescence. And matrescence is the transition into motherhood. Now, when you think about matrescence, you can also liken it to adolescence. Dr. Aurelie Athen, who's an incredible researcher at Columbia in the 90s, brought revived the term, which was first coined in the 70s by Dana Raphael, that we matrescence like adolescence. And that's also why you can think about how to pronounce it. That's how I remember how to pronounce it too. And it's not just about becoming a mom, it's about becoming a new version of you. And all the transitions, it comes with grief, identity shifts, and growing pains. Now, if you think about adolescence, think about any teens that you may know that have gone through adolescence, acting a little extreme, skin's changing, hair's changing, trying to figure out who they are in this world. And, we give them leeway because we're like, they're going through adolescence, they're becoming adults. And we get that same gift now as moms because we too are going through matrescence. We too are learning how to mom. We're learning how to mom just the way our babies are learning how to baby. Now, if you think about it, if we didn't have that term, adolescence, and we would see the kids, I mean, before that was coined, and it was only coined in the early 1900s when the term adolescence was formalized. Before that, I would think, what is going on with these kids? Why are they being crazy? Or why are they acting in such strange ways? Because they were going through something that had a name and is studied. So none of us think twice. We're like, yeah, they're going through adolescence. And so that's the same with us. We're going through matrescence. And matrescence doesn't stop. It's our nonlinear journey. And with each child, that journey starts over again. And the way my mentor, Amy Taylor Kabaz, defines it is the complete transformation and identity shift of a mother as she goes through motherhood. Think about it: psychological, emotional, social, physical, economical, cultural, spiritual. Like, and then we think about those are big words, right? Like when we start to kind of parse them down, like kids are expensive, relationships change, relationship with your partner, with your friends, with yourself, your body. There's so many changes. And society, I feel like sometimes tells moms that we like need to know what we're doing. Why? We've never done this before. Just as our babies are learning how to baby, they've never babied before. We're patient when they learn how to walk. We're patient when, they're going through all of their milestones, learning how to talk. We deserve and should get that same love because we're learning how to be a mom. Maybe some of us learned how to change a diaper on a doll. Well, who knows that changing a diaper on a little squiggly crying baby is very different than changing a diaper on a doll. Practicing CPR on a doll, these are all, and so we're also learning too. And there's no real roadmap because every child is different, every mother is different. And so we get this gift of knowing that we are on our matrescence journey, and there is no reason that we should know what we're doing all the time. And that's okay because we're learning and we're transforming and we're morphing, and it's daunting and it's exciting, which is the importance of support and community because we're not supposed to do this in a silo. We're supposed to do this together. So I would love if we can name some of the changes together. Of course, we'd need a lot more time, but if you want to put in the chat any changes, that have come up for you. Like when you think about the changes in motherhood, what are the things that you think about? We can think about how fast it's all going. Little newborn's now a toddler, now it's a teenager. And think about when you used to be able to go to spontaneous happy hours, without having to plan for a babysitter, your pre-motherhood self. There's so many different changes that you can think about. And I encourage you, through the rest of today and just to start to think about what are the changes in your motherhood journey? What are the grieving experiences that you've had? What about that quiet ache when you're scrolling through photos of your pre-baby life and then newborn life, and then just feeling like, who is that person? Or maybe looking at your partner, being like, wow, I miss how we used to be. Or realizing that you can't formulate a coherent thought because you haven't slept a full night in ages. And also feeling that, God, I'm so grateful for the reason that all of this is happening. And again, this is grief. And it's beautiful. It's not good or bad. It is. It's not always loud. It doesn't always announce itself, but it lives in these moments that we don't have to muscle through. We don't have to push it down and we don't have to feel shame about any of it. Just we can name it and honor it. And when we do that, it can start to loosen. It can start to feel less overwhelming. Because the fact is, every day in our matrescence journey, there's going to be new changes. There's going to be new joys. There's going to be new things. There's going to be all kinds of changes, and we're going to experience all kinds of emotions. And that's okay. And what we really need to talk about even more is that grief doesn't stop just because things are good. It grows right alongside the joy. Grief doesn't stop when things aren't bad or bad. Grief is so tightly tied to change. So I hope you'll be able to look at that also in the context of your motherhood journey and in your life as well. And it's really important that to know that it's not anything to fix. You just need to feel it. Our society, we want to fix things. And of course we want to fix things. And I think it's also a beautiful thing to want to fix things. But when you fix something, it means something's broken. And nothing's broken here. There's nothing wrong. You don't need a solution. You need a space to feel. You don't have to perform or pretend or stay positive. I'm all about positivity and gratitude, but not when it's toxic. Because it's also important. It's important to feel what's real. It's important to feel what is true. And again, grief is not negative. It's not a sign that something's wrong. It's a response to change. And it's also full of just quiet, invisible, layered grief. And again, it's not because you don't love your child, it's because you're human. And the most beautiful thing is that we can hold more than one emotion at once. You can feel love and longing, like I said before, peace and panic and gratitude and grief and God, rage and tenderness. They're not contradictions at all. They're real. And we're made to hold it all. How many of you have ever had that moment when you're up with either a crying, teething, or sick child, baby, child, and you literally feel in your body that you can't go on another second? And you do, because we're constant. Sometimes we have to, but we don't always have to rush to fix it. Okay, obviously, with a crying, sick baby, that's a different circumstance. But in our day to day life, we don't have to push past the hard feelings or to reach for gratitude or again to tell ourselves that other people have it worse. Our feelings are valid and we all feel them 100%. And so, again, just want to leave that there's nothing to fix here, but to feel it, to not force feelings, to not force positivity. Like by trying to hold that sand in your hand, it just gets forced. And when you try to force something, sometimes the opposite happens. And so you don't have to pretend that it's easy because any mom knows that this isn't easy. And frankly, any mom who says it's easy is either fibbing a little bit, dare I say. They're fibbing. It's not easy. There can be easy moments, but overall, we all know that it's hard and beautiful. And so if we can just start to feel what's real and not edit, or at least not edit to ourselves, not tell ourselves what we need to feel, even if we don't want to share it with anyone, or find those trusted moms that you can show up in that trusted community where you don't have to tone down yourself or edit yourself to be palatable, where you can feel what you're feeling and share it without shame. Because when we can share and be witnessed, that's when healing really begins, is when we can be witnessed and be in a room like this, where it's like, yeah, I get it. I feel that. I feel you. So sometimes again, it's hard to articulate. Sometimes you may not know what you're feeling, and that's okay. So I want to share some reframes for you. Sometimes we can start to immediately beat ourselves up. So instead of maybe asking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be happy? Or why am I so emotional? What if nothing's wrong? Like, and all of these questions, insert whatever, your default may be. Maybe you have better self-talk, which is great. I know for me, that's often a question I have is, why can't you just do this? Why other moms can do it? Why can't you? And so having that reframe of, okay, let me pause for a second. What's that truth inside of me that needs a name right now? Or what am I grieving today? What's coming up for me today? What am I holding right now? So you can think about different questions and maybe even write it on a post-it put it on your mirror, diaper bag, or on your phone of a reminder to just check in with yourself and use the language that feels good for you. If you don't like the word grief, hey, what am I holding right now? What feels heavy in me right now? Or what part of me needs extra love today? What feels heavy? Or when's the last time I had a glass of water or ate something or took a shower or peed, and just to ask yourself kindly with compassion and curiosity. This is how we start to gently go back to ourselves, one kind question at a time. I think it's Tony Robbins who says if you ask a bad question, you get a bad answer. And it's true. If we ask ourselves an unkind question, then we can also get an unkind answer. So if we can kind of reframe how we're looking at that, then we can slowly start to gently and honestly come back to ourselves. So I really encourage you to write that down somewhere, like the question, the wording that resonates with you, and to check into it periodically of, or what do I need in this moment? Maybe you just need a sip of water. Maybe you need to go in the bathroom for 2 seconds and lock the door. Step outside for 30 seconds. And I know we don't always have a lot of time. I know there's not a lot of time. So these are things you can do quickly. And if you can, even if like you're in the midst of a toddler tsunami, and just take a deep breath in and, okay, what do I need right now? Maybe I need to take some deep breaths, or maybe I need to just go eat something. Maybe I need to call a friend or just text a friend, or maybe I need to tell my partner I just need a little bit of help. I really encourage you to take the wording that feels good for you in a moment of calm so that you can have it to look back at when you're feeling heightened, or again, when the toddler tsunami comes, or whatever it is that, whatever age your child is that is maybe having big emotions, or you're having big emotions, or whatever the circumstance is that you're in. I want to leave you with this truth is that you're not failing, you're feeling. You feel overwhelmed, miss your old life. It feels hard. I mean, it is hard. Anyone who says it isn't hard is not telling the truth. But you're feeling. And none of us were meant to do this alone, and we're not taught. And you're not feeling because your body's changed and your body hasn't bounced back. Your body's not going to bounce back. You bounce forward into a new version of yourself. And you're not feeling because you may wish something was different, or because you cry, or because you yell. We all cry a lot and yell, and that's okay. Or if you feel that you were never meant to do this and feel all alone, or that maybe you're not good at it, it's all there, and it all is part of our beautiful and hard matrescence journey. I really want to reiterate that it's not a failure to have feelings. It's a human, part of the human experience. And you're not alone, and you're not wrong. So again, just to recap, that matrescence is the transition into motherhood, a full body, full heart identity shift. And you can liken it to adolescence. It's just, think about adolescence, it's matrescence for moms. And grief is not a problem. It's a companion on the the journey of becoming. It's what rises up between the space of who you are and who you're becoming, and we're constantly becoming in our matrescence journey. And all of the conflicting feelings for all the end of familiar patterns of behavior, that is grief and a normal reaction to a change of any kind. That's all grief. It's all normal, and it's all valid. I really hope that this new awareness can start to be a beginning, that you can think about matrescence if you're not familiar with the term, and grief, and just look at that in the different contexts of your life. And remember, ask yourself a loving question. What part of me needs extra love today? I encourage you, maybe if you can after this, to take 5 minutes to just think or write or speak aloud just for you. So no editing, no fixing. You want to do it over Voxer to a friend or to yourself, or just talk to your pet if you have one, or even your newborn. Let whatever rises be enough and be okay. Because, like motherhood, there's no right way to do this, only your way. And remember, your feelings are valid, all of them, and you're not failing, you're feeling. So I thank you so much for being here today. Um, I know that I think we wanted to leave some time for questions and for reflections. And I would I'd love to answer any questions, reflections, takeaways, anything for being here, just while you're here. And one thing I also wanted to share with all of you first, very exciting, is that I actually just published a journal on You're Not Failing, You're Feeling, that literally came out this week, that goes deeper into what we talked about today, that I'm really super excited about and wanted to share with all of you. So, love to open it up to questions, comments. I can start looking at the chats.
Thank you so much. That was so wonderful and so important. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to add them in the chat. Also, this is recorded, so if you want to reference it or share it with another friend or another mother at any time, it's available for you on the Auggie app. But yeah, feel free to put any questions you have in the chat there. And thank you so much, Ilana. Congratulations on the journal too. That's so exciting.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Were there
We'll
any
just
questions? Okay, just looking through the chat now too. Yeah. So someone share grieving my body, my prior body, professional identity, spontaneity, and friendships. Do you want to share more about that, Haley or Kia? Not to put you guys on the spot, no pressure. Um, do you want to talk about more? And I'd love to know if you had heard the term matrescence before and if that shifts any of your thinking and feeling.
I want to share one. I can say that I don't know, but Alana coaches me. And so I'm coming from, and just to say also, I just got my book today. So I'm really excited. But one of the things, and before talking to Alana, like I said in the chat, I have 4 kids and also being advanced maternal age. So, and all when I had my first child, who is now 15, there's a lot of changes, but I never heard of matrescence. I was never given that opportunity to share, to know that with your first child, that the you lose that first time you lose your identity. Like if you're married, okay, you still have your identity, but you don't, when you have a child, you lose that because you are now no longer that individual, you are a mother. And processing that was a lot. And then that's just through a normal pregnancy and a normal delivery, but also recognizing the importance of having people in your life, to having a name to the struggle. And then it's not what I wanted to highlight, and you can go into more about, it's not just when they're born. Like I said, I have my ranging of my children are like from a 7-year old to the 15-year old, and like my 7-year old is my youngest with a complex, genetic disorder, and it's still a lot of unknowns, but I never had the word to explain the tears and the frustrations and the feeling like failing. So I just wanted to put that in context so people like on thinking it's not just when the child is born, but every new child. And then my older 2 kids, I had them, they're 11 months apart. So having basically Irish twins, and then and that was a process, and not having the understanding of like how to process those emotions, the many times sitting in the closet crying because it's like I don't know, I don't know. And then you have a third child, and so I just wanted to just share that it is this isn't just from being born and just becoming a new mom. I've found it very helpful in all of the transitions and changes and in all the ages. So I just want to put that perspective because I know people think like, oh, it's you're once you've had the child and they're older now, that's matrescence when it's born. But I'm like, it's ongoing. It's ongoing, and it's ongoing learning and dealing, and there's times where I'm like I have to keep you reminded both, and because you're feeling like I can't do this, and then oh wait a minute, okay, but I love them, but like mm, just that's all you can get out sometimes. So thank you, Alana, for sharing this. And um definitely it helps to have just a name on it. It changed my perspective on what I'm going through, to give myself grace. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kia. It's gonna make me cry. And for sharing, so vulnerably. Because we can sometimes, forget that it's a constant journey, renewal, rebecoming, and to remember that the both and can hold both and. That's why I said it, I try to say it without sounding like a broken record, but intentionally because we all need that reminder. Gosh, I need that reminder. I have it up too to remember the both and, because when we get caught up in all of it, where we can forget and start shooting on ourselves. But thank you so much, Kia, for sharing that. And thank you for being here. And thank you all for being here. Um, any other questions?
I chime in.
Yes, please.
Um, Thank you, Kia, for sharing that, by the way. I appreciate your vulnerability. That really means a lot. And thank you, Alana, for this space. So important for mothers to have a space that they can just kind of feel those feelings and whatever that looks like for them. For me, I think a lot of it was grieving my former self before I had my first child. She's only 16 months now, and she's my only child right now. But before that, I had a very spontaneous lifestyle. I used to travel a lot internationally. I was a gig worker, so I was traveling for work. I was kind of able to kind of just move at the pace and the space that I wanted to. And so once I had my child, that completely stopped. And I grieved a lot of that old life and the friendships and the professional part of that and just the social. I'm a very social person, so like not having all these places to go and be seen and have a reason to get dressed and that kind of thing was really really hard for me. So dealt with that a lot. I feel like I'm definitely in a better place now and kind of embracing what motherhood looks like for me. I think also I'm a stay-at-home mom, so that also brings in another layer because you're kind of in that space of motherhood all the time. You don't really get to remove yourself. Like if you had a job like a 9 to 5 or somewhere where you left the house, and when you're with your kid and they're in your face all day long, it really puts a reality check on everything. And like you're like, what am I doing? How did I get here? All of those questions and thoughts flood, at random parts of the day. So yeah, thank you for sharing this and for articulating the matrescence, if I'm saying that correctly,
Yes, you are.
because that's exactly what it is. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing and congrats on your baby. And
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for being here and for sharing that. And it's so true because when you have, like your previous self, used to being on the go and getting dressed up and makeup. I mean, I put makeup on. I seldom ever wear makeup, so today was an excuse to get to wear makeup, and sometimes you could be like, when did I get dressed? And like the seemingly small things are the big things because they're also a huge part of who we used to be. So thank you for sharing that, especially when you're home with a kid who, they always have body fluids that we sometimes find on our clothing, you know.
And the makeup part is funny because it's like I never was a big makeup girl, but makeup does kind of create a confidence. And so when you don't have it on for days at a time, weeks at a time, you're like, who am I? Am I even like pretty or what am I doing? All of those just crazy thoughts come.
Which are all valid. They're all valid because, I had worked with a mom who her thing was to always put on some mascara. She was also a stay-at-home mom, and so she put on mascara, and that was something that like helped her kind of be in touch with, a part of her that she used to be that she still wanted to be, and that made her really happy, and that's great. Another one like with lipstick, some it's like just putting on clean socks. For me, it was putting on clean sweatpants, like that was a win. But whatever that is for you, or doesn't have to be any of those things. But just to make a big example, I was thinking because I remember her sharing with me how much she like felt good as soon as she like took 2 seconds to put her mascara on, so whatever that thing is. And again, no small too big, it's valid. If it brings you joy, makes you happy, then hey, I got my minion socks. They make me really happy.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So yes, I hope that this was helpful and impactful. I thank you so much for your shares. You can all reach out anytime if you have questions. I know there's a few people who couldn't come today, so please also feel free if you have questions to contact me, and I will be doing more talks and both either on Augie and in other places. So I hope you'll stay in touch and um, yeah. So if there's any other questions, or if you want to message me privately or Haley privately, and we can anonymously share a comment, can do that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. This was so wonderful, and all of you for joining, and for being so vulnerable with us. And just sharing as a village, trying to get through this amazing adventure together. So thank you all so much. Again, this is recorded. If you want to go access it again later, it's on the Auggie app. Just go to past events, and the recording will be available there. You can also share it with others if someone was missed it and you feel like this would really resonate with them as well. But thank you both. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful
Yeah.
rest of your day. Thank you, guys.